This is a Martin Keown free zone this morning.
People like to come on and they like to have their opinion and drive by with it and drop it in, no one ever challenges it, and then everyone gets on nicely. We'll tell you what we want. We want all the benefits.
Yeah.
We'll have all the benefits. These benefits, they come with a bit of a sting in the tail. No, I don't fancy any of that.
Yeah.
If someone says, well, what about that? And what about this? And they don't like any of that, and that's why they don't want to come on shows like this. And I'm happy, I'd be delighted to be wrong. It's not beyond the wit of man. It's like the idea of socialism, a great thing until you run out of other people's money, isn't it?
This is a Martin Keown free zone this morning. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was quite a morning yesterday, wasn't it? It was quite a day. But I'll give him his due. He sticks to his line. He sticks to his opinion, whether he thinks he's right, wrong, or not. No matter what, he's quite strong, man. He's resilient.
Yeah,
as a player.
I think that what is the purpose of a mind if you can't change it?
Right.
And if you avail yourself of new information, I'm very happy to concur with the view that players need to be protected against the vigours of sport. The challenge for me, and it goes always back to this, is how do you make this model work that's now been created? And the only way they keep making it work is by keep on introducing more money to keep on feeding this ravenous beast. Yeah, that part gets ignored. All the benefit gets ignored. And what I disagree with and dislike about people that just shout opinions at you is that if you've got, I mean, I'm guilty of doing it as well, but I will also tell you what my solution might be.
Yeah.
What I don't like people doing, and this is why I have really objected to PFA, is all they tell you is what they don't want to do. We'll tell you what we want. We want all the benefits.
Yeah.
We'll have all of the benefits. And then when it comes to the flip side, which is, well, these benefits, they come with a bit of a sting in the tail. No, I don't fancy any of that. Okay, well then what's your solution to this magical 4 weeks that you require, which 99% of all players are getting? It's only the 1% that aren't getting it. And what's your solution to the challenges of fixtures when you need your 48, no longer 48 hours or whatever Keown wants?
Yeah.
There's silence.
Yeah.
Because they full well know that it's easy. It's like the idea of socialism, a great thing until you run out of other people's money, isn't it?
Well, I mean, he mentioned, Martin yesterday mentioned Elanga, the man at the top of the PFA, and how willing he is, apparently, according to Martin, to come on our show. I know Maheta. I met him a few times at recent events. And we'll see if we can pursue that, because it would be a good chat to have, and we'll see where we go with it.
But they don't like being challenged.
Right.
It's people like to come on and they like to have their opinion and drive by with it and drop it in, no one ever challenges it, and then everyone gets on nicely.
Yeah.
If someone says, well, what about that? And what about this? And they don't like any of that, and that's why they don't want to come on shows like this.
I wonder if Newcastle United fans are having this. I would have thought they would be. Newcastle United this morning, Simon, closing in on their first summer signing after agreeing a fee of £55 million to sign Anthony Elanga from Nottingham Forest. This was Nottingham Forest, Simon, who bought Elanga for £15 million in 2023.
I bet United have got a nice sell on that.
Absolutely, a £40 million profit in the space of 2 years on that one.
Maybe, but United will probably have United, although their competence needs to be questioned. They must have a sell on.
Yeah,
so they'll have some of that.
Newcastle have been chasing this signing since last summer. Is Elanga the sort of guy that's going to take them to the next level? When we talk about them going to the next level, would they, with a front three of Elanga, Anthony Gordon, and Isak in the middle, is that going to take them to the next level? I think it's not too bad, to be quite honest.
I mean, Anthony Elanga wasn't really wanted at Manchester United. He's had a standout season at Nottingham Forest. I suppose, as much as I can muster up any sympathy for Marinakis, I feel a bit sorry for Nottingham Forest.
Why?
Because the rewards of Nottingham Forest is that they're going to get cherry-picked off by sides that are perhaps in a slightly better position than they are. Forest have got plenty of money. Marinakis has got plenty of money. They probably can go for a period of time toe-to-toe with the ownership model at Newcastle economically. But they can't, because they can't get themselves into a position where they can meet the requirements of the governance.
But you feel sorry for Marinakis. It's a £40 million profit in the space of 2 years.
But he's losing a good player. So this team that we looked at last year...
buy another one.
Yeah, but you've got to build teams. And teams aren't just built overnight. And so if you start taking away the best parts of the team, all of a sudden next it'll be the other kid, Gibbs White. And then it'll be someone else, and it'll be someone else. And all of a sudden, the structure, the backbone of Nottingham Forest that deserved so much praise last season and so much credibility for what they did starts to get underpinned because everybody's, look at Forest over there. There's the vision.
Yeah.
We'll pinch all their players.
Yeah.
And whilst they get a big profit whilst they get a big profit on a player, it's only good if you're going to reinvest it back into the playing squad. If you suddenly make yourself worse and you fall 5 places down the league, you haven't made so much profit. All of a sudden, you've dropped 5 or 6 places in the league. You've cost yourself £20 million in merit payments. So what was the big deal about selling it?
Never mind Forest. Let's stick to Newcastle. What's it all about for them next season? Is it about kicking on? Is it about going to the next level?
But what does the next level look like? Okay, do we, in all good consciousness, and there's lots of challenges this year. We don't know what Man City are going to do. We don't know what the tragic events at Liverpool are going to do to impact upon that football team, because it will have an impact. And we don't know whether Arsenal, it's all well and good Arsenal saying, oh, we're going to buy Zubimendi and we're going to buy Gyokeres. They've still got to incorporate them. By buying a centre forward, Arsenal have got to play a different way than they've played before. So it's not given the question that you put to Keown yesterday, did they expect to win the league? So Newcastle, do we really think that Newcastle are going to finish in front of any of these sides? It's a difficult question to answer. So what is the next level? FA Cup? Because they're not going to. I'd be gobsmacked if Newcastle win the Champions League next year. It's not beyond the wit of man. So if they have a nice season in the Champions League but don't win it, they might retain the League Cup. They might win an FA Cup. What's the next level for Newcastle? Stabilising in the Champions League spots.
Well, it's a good point you make. 4 years into the Saudi ownership has brought a League Cup and 2 Champions League qualifications. So they are going in the right direction.
I think they've done very well.
But will they end up going to the next level? I think they might go close. I remember Eddie Howe speaking in May, and he virtually said, we look to take advantage of others in this PSR landscape. This was Eddie.
The PSR deadline plays a huge role for clubs, both those clubs with PSR issues and those without, because those without may potentially look to try and sign players, take advantage of other clubs, as clubs did to us last year, quite rightly. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and one that we're very aware of, and we'll try to use to our advantage if we can. But certainly I can't go into sort of the details of that, but no doubt we've got people at the club that are working very hard behind the scenes on it. Yeah, we want to keep our best players, Martin. I think I've made that very clear. That's not just the wish from me, that's the wish from everyone at the club. Don't have a crystal ball. I can't sit here and say what's going to happen. I can only say what my determination is, and it's to build a team, the best team possible. And to do that, I think you can't consistently lose your best players.
That's quite right.
He's right, isn't he?
Interesting.
Isak Sting.
Interesting. He said that people taking advantage of PSR quite rightly. He didn't think it was quite right last year. He was infuriated by it. Now Newcastle are in a position to be able to take advantage of other people's PSR travails. Now it's quite rightly people could take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And then Newcastle are still caught by the same situation. Newcastle, in order to kick into the next level, they probably need to spend 200-300 million quid over a series of transfer windows.
Well, they've started well with Elanga. 55 million.
Yeah, but everyone can
buy,
buy,
at the 8th of July.
But every football club in the Premier League can buy a £55 million footballer. There's no revelation in that.
Yeah.
I mean, Elanga's a decent player. Elanga's a decent player. I mean, you're not buying a well-beater, you're buying a decent player. I like Eddie Howe. I think he's a great manager. I've changed my opinion on him, not done a complete U-turn, but I've changed my opinions on him because I spent more time in his company.
Yeah.
And I think his team have been a revelation to watch at times. I feel sorry for Newcastle. I feel sorry for Nottingham Forest. I feel sorry for Aston Villa, because this is not what sport was confected to do. It was supposed to be, if you've got an opportunity to be the best, you can be the best.
Yeah.
And if you can see the vision, you can get the vision. And a lot of it's about money. So everyone else can do what they want. Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City, Man United, they can spend what they want.
Right.
Because they've got PSR under control, because they've got £600 million turnovers. These clubs have not got that, so they can't.
Let's start with Newcastle this morning then, Simon. So Elanga is all but in, 55 million quid. Newcastle, the same Newcastle United, are considering a move for free agent Dominic Calvert-Lewin following the departure of Callum Wilson. So what are we talking about here? Are Newcastle shopping in the next level market? Elanga's in, maybe Calvert-Lewin's on the way. Is it the next level market? Martin is a Newcastle fan. Jim is a Toon fan. I love the Elanga signing. He's rapid. He works hard and has developed his end product absolutely brilliantly. As a team, yeah, you bet. It gives us a whole bunch of attacking opportunities. Watch this space. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting.
Harvey
Simon
Barnes is a good player as well, isn't he? I mean, they've got a bunch of players that can play in this way. Are they enough to take them to what we consider, or anyone considers, the next level? And what is the next level for Newcastle? Is it an assault upon the Premier League? Maybe it is.
I think so. I think it's got to be. It's
a tall order. I mean, it really is a tall order, because there are teams with better players, with bigger pockets, that are more established. And Newcastle are nibbling away year on year, getting themselves into a situation where 2 out of the 3 years that Eddie's been there now, they've got into Champions League spots.
Yeah.
The first season was a recovery job, and he did it at Cantor, didn't he? Second season, they were brilliant. They were brilliant. I remember watching them against Man City in that second season, and they took Man City to task.
Yeah.
I think they drew the game 3-3, but it was a really good game.
But maybe with Newcastle, Simon, if they can get themselves into an Arsenal position, maybe they will try and get themselves over the line a bit more effectively than Arsenal did. Because they've got firepower, that's why.
Well, they? I mean, they've got Isak. Isak. When Isak's injured, what else they got?
They've got Gordon one side, they'll have Elanga the other side.
Yeah, but
they've got Bruno who chip in.
How many goals do wingers score?
They've got Joe Linton who chip in.
Yeah, maybe. They've
got Harvey Barnes who chip in.
Like Eddie Howe said, he doesn't have a crystal ball. What he's trying to do is assemble a team, being the best team it can possibly be, and see what it lends itself towards.
Well, we put it out there going into the break. Newcastle United fans, are you shopping in the next level market? It would seem to me you are. And Elanga will be part of that. Adam's a big Newcastle fan, and he has called 03717 223344. Adam, good morning. What do you make of this signing, and are you going to the next level this season?
Morning, Jim. Morning, Simon.
Morning,
what a fantastic show, as always.
Thank you.
Do you know what? I don't think we need to shop in this, in inverted commas, next level. I mean, what you've got to factor in, I think on paper we've got one of the strongest midfields in the Premier League, and they're players like Bruno Gyokeres, Sandro Tonali, that all the big teams could have signed a few years ago, and they didn't. And now they're probably some of the best players. And what you also got to factor in, Eddie Howe has made Joe Linton one of the best centre midfielders in the Premier League. He was signed as a forward under Benitez. Okay, and now he's in the Brazil squad.
Yeah.
So yes, Anthony Elanga is a great player, phenomenal addition. I think we paid the good money for him. But you've got to factor in that Jacob Murphy last season had one of the best seasons of his career, and that was under Eddie Howe. So we need to be shopping in the Mbappe and Haaland markets. Absolutely not. We've got Eddie Howe.
Adam, you sound as if you know what you're talking about. Give me this just before you leave us. What does the next level for Newcastle look like to you?
Well, I mean, for us, would I have taken a, Champions League place over the Carabao Cup last season? Absolutely not. The Carabao Cup was phenomenal for us, but to compound that with a Champions League place as well is phenomenal. So, if we can have seasons where we're winning trophies and getting in the top four, and then maybe the next 3 to 5 years pushing for the Premier League, ambitions for, I think, a lot of Newcastle fans was winning a trophy. That box is now ticked. Top four finish on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Then we can build from there, and the PSR thing becomes less of an issue. Hopefully those rules and regulations change in the future. But I think, if we can steady ourselves in a top four position, which absolutely I think we've got the squad. And for us, it's about building the squad rather than just buying the marquee signing.
Adam, I like it. Very good call. Thanks for that. Simon, if you're part of the Saudi ownership, are you happy with where you're at?
Well, we've seen what Saudi ownership does in other sports. It owns. The king of boxing is Turki Al-Sheikh. And so he's had a free range to be able to do as he wants. And his money and his desires and ambitions and innovation have created an opportunity for him to be top of the pile. He's calling the shots. Everybody comes down and comes to him. So I would imagine that's what they wanted at Newcastle, to have a team that they could build.
Yes.
But I would suspect, in the great scheme of things, looking at what they've been able to achieve, realising that once they've walked into the environment, that the rigours and vigours of it are weighted against them because of the construct of the way that the governance is put in place, I would imagine that they're quite happy. The fact that the sides, on the whole, with one season in the middle of it that wasn't a progressive season, it was sort of a treading water, going slightly backwards season, they have been a very, very productive 2 or 3 or 4 years. They kept themselves out of the relegation problems that they had at Canter by bringing Eddie Howe in. The first season, their fourth season, they marched into the Champions League. They were a brilliant side to watch. Second season, a bit of if and or buts. And then this third season, fourth season, they've won a cup and they've won a place in the Champions League. And,
see, I mean, he might be right, he might be wrong, but I remember speaking to Yasser Al-Rumayyan, the Newcastle chairman, after they lost the Carabao Cup final to Manchester United, and he said to me behind the scenes at Wembley, we're already at the next level. We've lost today, but we're at the next level. Well, now they truly are, but here's one for you. Does the PSR landscape and the restraints of it negate the Eddie Howe Bobbles argument?
What's his argument?
Or is that, or your argument of that Eddie will not be the fella that will take you to the bobble you want?
No, sorry, the promised land. Yeah, sorry, my argument. My belief is that Eddie Howe will do a sterling job at Newcastle, and the more I've watched him and listened to him and paid attention to what he's doing, the more that sentiment has increased. I don't see Eddie being in situ on the day that Newcastle win the Premier League, if they ever do.
Still?
No, I don't. Well, he's going to have to be there a long while, I think. And I'm happy. I'd be delighted to be wrong. I'd be delighted for the cabal to be broken up. I'd be delighted for Newcastle to ride roughshod across all the governance and come straight in with a £350 million turnover next year and do a number on the cities, Liverpool's, Arsenal's of the world that have got almost double their turnover. I'd be delighted for them because I think it would be great for English football. I think it would be certainly great for that hotbed of football up in that part of the world. And we'd never hear the last of it, would we?
Yeah. But
the fact of the matter is, I think it's a very tall order. What he's doing is he's building a very, very, very competitive side.
Yeah.
That's able now. So now they're going into Champions League again. He's got to build a squad to match the Champions League expectations. We now know that this format that they've got in the Champions League suited Aston Villa really well and made a song and dance out of it for Celtic, who still got knocked out at the same stages.
Yeah,
but everyone looked better. So he goes into new Champions League format. He's building a bigger squad.
Yeah.
So now we want to see if Newcastle can operate on 4 fronts. Can they operate in the Premier League, the two domestic cups, and the Champions League?
Sure thing. Remember Amanda Staveley saying we will win the lot one day. Well, they've won one. They've won one, and that was the Carabao Cup. There's a bit to go yet. When it comes to these behind-the-scenes, all areas, behind-the-scenes documentaries, you think of Amazon, you think of Amazon Prime, access all areas. Are we having them? We've certainly seen a few of them in the past, and now Manchester United have been deliberating as to whether or not they're going to do one, get behind the scenes in an Amazon production next season, even after everything that's happened to them last season. And we've seen Arsenal, Manchester City, and Tottenham all participate in them, and we've seen what unfolds.
Edison invented the light bulb. Today I want to see a team that is connected, because a bulb by himself is nothing. I want to see a team that is connected with each other and that shines. And you want to transmit to him light and energy and passion and how you play football, and you two the same.
Sit down! Nobody talk! Sit down! We drink water and relax. You are sad? There are many sads. I'm not good. I'm not good enough. I know that. Don't make faces. He's only the one in my team. I try to do my best. It's all. In a few years you can be a manager and you can do it. No problem. But until now, guys, I am the boss, and I decide.
It's the same for you. It's the same for Ari. It's the same for Lucas. Make the run. 1 minute to go. 1 minute to go. We nearly got to the goal. What's your respect for me? Respect you. What? The ball. Because I'm a Make the run. Make the run. Make the run for the team.
Well, we've seen Arsenal, we've seen Manchester City in that last clip there. If you're watching on YouTube and your smart TV, you would have seen Tottenham in the form of Son and the goalkeeper.
Hugo Lloris, yeah.
And Hugo Lloris squaring up to each other in the dressing room. So it certainly gets tasty, and it is access all areas. But it's not for Manchester United this season. Manchester United have withdrawn from talks over what would have been a record-breaking Amazon Prime Access All Areas documentary next season, after concluding that it could distract from the progress of the first team. Is that a good move, do you think, on their part?
Well, they would probably need more episodes to cover the absolute debacle that they've currently created for themselves there. So they probably have to have a soap sort of schedule for the next 12 months. I've never been a fan of these things. I understand why people like them. I understand why people think they're getting a lot of insight in them. I think some of them show insight, some of them are staged and theatrical. I think the confrontation between Danny Rose and Mourinho was nonsense. I think it was all created for the cameras. I wonder how much of the camera influence makes people operate in a different way. But I also understand why people think they're watching something that's informative.
Yeah,
I think that United are probably well advised to get themselves into some sort of condition where they're organised, their manager is in a decent situation. They haven't got sulking Eeyores walking around the training ground with their own particular brand of rain cloud over them, like Rashford and Sancho and God knows whoever else, Anthony and Casemiro and Garnacho. And they probably need to get themselves into a better position to give themselves the best opportunity to market themselves with the best version of themselves.
Well, it's Amorim who's kiboshed it. Ruben Amorim has made it clear he was not comfortable with the potential intrusion on the first team. So probably his call has been the ultimate call, and that's why it's all off.
Of course it has, to some extent. I mean, he'll do as...
I mean, Ferguson would never have had it. Not in a million years.
Probably not. But Ferguson was a product of his time. And a remarkable product of his time, and the world's changed. And I agree with a lot of what Ferguson says about the way that cameras and we will differ on this. I think there's only a certain amount of access that the broadcaster needs to have, and I think there's only a certain amount of entitlement they should feel. But as a broadcaster, natural broadcaster, you'll say access all areas. We want as much information as we can get because it creates content.
It's dynamite, Simon.
Yeah, and some, but I
mean, Arteta there with the light bulb. I'm not too sure what he was going on about. Pep Guardiola, everybody sit down and shut up.
But
it was going against City that particular game.
But there's a funny thing is,
everybody stop making faces. I mean, that is gold.
But there's a funny, and that's great, and that's how you see a certain management style, which is pack it in, get your heads into the game. I'm the boss, not you. Great. I mean, I would reasonably assume that's what's being said anyway. I'd reasonably assume that someone had some authority over these highly paid islands.
Yeah, but you don't have to assume. We're seeing it here, and we're hearing it for the first time.
What happened to the magnificent culture of what stays in the dressing room? What happened to that then?
You see, that's what you lose, isn't it?
Well, you lose that. You lose the ability to be able to be honest at times, because if you are aware of cameras, and you will be aware of them, and they might be less and less aware the more that they're there. There will be an element of acting out. There'll be an element of distraction, and there'll be an element of Disneyfication of what at times is serious commercial sport that needs to be discussed in a certain way. And whilst the viewer wants to see every access all areas, sometimes there's no. So what happens next? So should the broadcaster be in there when you're negotiating with an agent over a player transfer?
Why not?
Because there's commercially sensitive stuff in there. And people's salaries or people's particular individual aspects of their contracts are specific to them.
We know most of them. We know what we need to know about salaries these days anyway.
We think we know, right? But when you're sitting there listening to a negotiation, I mean, I'd quite like it, because then you can see the absolute ghastly, absolute horrors of human beings that agents are. And then you can see how avaricious the players are, and it might give you a different perspective. But actually, they won't want you to see that. They want you to see that they're all whiter than white, and everything's above board, and everything is wonderful, and they're committed, and they can't wait to kiss the badge, and they're ready to go.
Yeah, but we're all told how tough Daniel Levy is in negotiation with agents. Then we might just be able to see a bit of that.
What's wrong with that? As an owner, I'd be quite happy for you to see it. I bet you the players and agents wouldn't want to see it, because then they'd be painted in their true glory. I'm not suggesting that wonderful talent and remarkable footballers shouldn't be rewarded, and that they shouldn't be lionised if they do remarkable things. We have a habit of lionising mediocrity, but they wouldn't want you to see that, because then the public would get the real picture. Let's show it all. Let's not show the bits where people have a little tear up in the dressing room. Let's show the bits when the players don't want to train. Let's show the bits when the players have a tantrum, they don't turn up to public appearances. Let's show the bits when it's really coming on top, when you're seeing controversy.
The Arsenal one did with Aubameyang, did that?
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
No, it didn't.
Arteta well and truly was not having Aubameyang.
Oh, good. Yeah, right. He didn't do it to Aubameyang, did he? He did it about Aubameyang.
We saw
him. He used a television show.
We saw him strip him of the captaincy.
Fantastic.
We see a lot. I mean, it's different to your time at Palace when you hid in a room next door to the dressing room with a glass against the wall, isn't it?
I didn't hide in the room.
Yes, you did.
I just didn't give people like you an opportunity to say I was in the dressing room. What I did was I listened out of interest to see what my manager was saying.
You listened out of interest?
Yeah, I was really interested. And the two managers I ever did it with were Warnock and Bruce, because I really liked what they had to say. And it lifted me, because I'm sitting there watching a team. I want my team to win. I want them to be successful. And it's really nice to hear a manager saying sensible things rather than some of the crap I had to listen to over the years.
But some of it's dynamite, Simon. You cannot deny that.
I'm not arguing against it. When
Aubameyang turned up in Barcelona, we saw the negotiation that was involved to get him out the club.
Yeah, I'm not against the idea that there's a reason and a space for it. I hate reality TV. I'd rather set myself on fire than watch Love Island and
shows
of this
nature. So you never get into the jungle?
No, God knows no. And I hate all that sort of stuff. But I understand.
We'd like to put you in the jungle.
I understand that there's an audience that really likes it. So the balance is. I know it sounds slightly pompous, it's not meant to, but what benefit is wisdom if it doesn't profit the wise? What do you gain from seeing the mechanics of something besides for your own delectation? Fantastic. And I know it's a Disneyfication of sport, and I recognise the entertainment value of it. As an owner of a football club, there's certain things that I want to say to somebody that's nobody else's business. And by the way, if they're broadcast by a broadcaster, they won't be edited in a way that's advantageous to anybody. They'll be edited in a way that's the most controversial and perhaps with the most jeopardy. And I understand why that's the case. So why would you want to put yourself in the eye of that particular storm?
It's actuality stuff, though. It's magnificent. It's behind the scenes. It's what it says on the tin.
Is it?
It's in the dressing room. It's Pep laying into his players. Hey, you, stop making faces. Listen up. I'm not God. Listen to what I'm saying. It's dynamite.
I'll tell you what would be dynamite is if you filmed this stuff without them knowing it.
What would have been dynamite if the Palace players had caught you in the next room listening to them? That would have been dynamite.
They didn't have to. It was a visitors room. I wasn't on the other side of the bloody building.
Or did you go into the wrong room?
Everybody knew where I was.
All right.
The fact is that if you wanted to really do this and you really want to get walks and all and fly on the wall stuff, don't tell them there's cameras there. Don't let them know there's a documentary being filmed. Then see how you get on.
Secret filming. Now you're talking.
Then you'll get the real kit and caboodle.
I'm not sure if that's legal, is it? Mind you, he doesn't care about legality, does he? We'll make a television producer review yet. Simon Jordan of Access All Areas, Amazon Prime. Wow. I mentioned earlier, Simon, quite a lot of Leicester fans getting in touch this lunchtime. Do we know as to who is going to be the man named to take over from Ruud van Nistelrooy? Gary O'Neill said to be very much in the frame. Chris Wilder said to be very much in the frame as well. They're understood to be the front runners this lunchtime to replace Van Nistelrooy at Leicester. We know that Leicester dropped down to the Championship, so whoever gets the job has got to have some kind of know-how about that territory and what's involved in getting out of that division. What do you think? Where do you think they'll lean to? Chris Wilder, I know.
Yeah.
I think would be the choice of many. We know Gary, and of course Gary, if it's a project, then Gary might be your man. If it's an experienced head regards to the Championship, Chris Wilder might be the man.
Yeah, I mean, it depends upon what the working relationships are in there, who the personalities are, and who they like in terms of the interactivity. Now, I've been critical about Chris Wilder's interactivity with his owner at Sheffield United 2 or 3 years ago, but that's a long time ago. Chris Wilder took Sheffield United down with a side that was very poor that he inherited, right? He got them together, gave him a boot up the backside, and he said it himself. I listened to him saying it during the season last year about the attitude that was at Sheffield United, and he changed it. And they've got to think that that's a valuable commodity, because Leicester, despite their travails, will want to get out of the Championship as quick as possible. Gary O'Neill obviously had 2 good seasons, one at Bournemouth when no one gave him much of a chance because Scott Parker told everybody how useless Bournemouth were going to be, and ultimately he proved them wrong by taking over the same squad. A little bit of help in the January window. He did well in his first season at Wolves. It all fell apart. I think they both have equal merit. If I was leaning towards one, and I like Gary a lot, I would potentially lean towards Wilder, because I think that there may be at Leicester that the players in there that need their minds concentrated. There needs to be a change up, and there needs to be a preparation for going again hard to get out of this division. Okay, that's not diminishing Gary by any comparison.
When it comes to managerial movement, we're across that. We're certainly across player movement as well, with the likes of Ben Jacobs and Alex Crook working time without any limit of time on these kind of stories. Victor Gyokeres said to be now closer than ever to moving to Arsenal. That's what we hear here. But what is the mood over in Portugal? The executive director of Record, the newspaper in Portugal, is Sergio Critinas, and Sergio joins us live this lunchtime. Sergio, good afternoon to you. What is the latest?
Hello.
Good afternoon to you, Sergio. Thanks for joining us. What's the latest from your end of Gyokeres to Arsenal? Is this all but done?
It's not done yet. Hello. There is still a big, I would say, fight, a bit stalemate between Sporting and Gyokeres agents right now, because the last bid from Arsenal was 65 million euros on fixed payment plus 15 million euros in bonuses, from which 5 would be easily reachable. But Sporting are demanding 70 as a fixed fee. So, and still Gyokeres, he has given up on 2 million euros on his own salary for the 5 years with Arsenal, in order to allow the club to increase their offer for the transfer fee. So right now Gyokeres is really upset, because he feels is already sacrificing his cut, his part of the salary, to make the deal happen, and Sporting keep saying they want 70 at least.
Simon Jordan is beside me, Sergio, a former club owner himself. You would probably say, well, Sporting Lisbon are right, Simon, to hold out for every dime they can.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously there's no release clause. I think there was deals done with Coventry back in the day where sell-ons have already been taken out of commission because Coventry wanted the money earlier on in the season, if I'm right in my understanding. But also, I mean, you've taken Enzo Fernandez out of Benfica for 105 million quid, which Chelsea did a couple of years ago. You've got a guy here now that scored a remarkable amount of goals. And I know it's the Portuguese league, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it still means it's got to translate into the Premier League. £60 million, which if they get their 70 million euros, which is £60 million, I mean, that is a steal for a centre forward that scored something like 98 goals in 96 games or something. I mean, I don't blame them for pushing the envelope as much as they possibly can to get as much money. If the player's been facilitatory in some of his salary demands, then that's good to make a deal happen. But I don't blame them. They're not going to break the deal. They're just going to try and push the envelope as far as they possibly can.
Well, as Simon says, Sergio, Gyokeres himself is being as facilitatory as he can be. In other words, he's giving up a lot to get the deal done. But there were even reports that he's prepared to go on strike to force the move through. Is that true?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, Gyokeres was supposed to join the training with the team yesterday, on Monday. But Sporting, they announced 2 days earlier, they announced he had permission to arrive only on Friday, together with two players that were in the Euro Under-21, Konrad Arder, the Danish striker, and Giovanni Kenda, the soon-to-be Chelsea player. So Sporting also avoided that moment of Gyokeres not showing up to his work by letting him stay on holidays for another 4 days. And we all expect these 4 days are the key to make the deal happen, you know. So we all expect that the deal will be done until Friday. Because if it doesn't happen, I think it's very clear from what I know that Gyokeres will not show up at Sporting. He definitely doesn't want to play again for the club. He has already told the president that very clearly. And he feels that somehow he has the right, after so many goals he scored for the club, so many trophies he helped the club win, he feels he has the right to have some easy time on leaving, you know, because he has a buyout clause of 100 million euros, which is a lot of money for a 27-year-old player. And of course, he has scored a lot of goals, and he has been probably the most impressive player I've seen in the Portuguese league in the last, I would say, 30, 40 years. And
wow!
But yeah, he's 27.
Yeah,
he's 27, and I know, I can understand why English clubs have some doubts about him, because he played for Coventry, he played for Brighton, he played for Swansea, and he exploded late. Was one of those cases of a late bloomer. That happens, okay.
Yeah.
And right now I feel he's totally ready to play in the top level. But I can understand why some clubs have doubts about him.
It's not necessarily just reservations. I mean, ultimately, the player has no grounds, and surely you guys in the Portuguese press must have a view on this. If there's a release clause in his contract for 100 million euros, which he was happy to sign, then he should have no real issue with the club trying to make it as commercially beneficial to them, because he and his agent allowed that £100 million release clause in it. It's not being met.
Yeah.
So Sporting have every right to do what they're doing.
Yeah, Simon, you are theoretically you're right, but there are some episodes of the story as well.
What, gentleman's handshake stuff?
Yeah, first of all, Gyokeres didn't want the 100 million buyout clause. Sporting pushed it and added a penalty clause. If they got an offer for 60, an official bid for 60, Sporting would have to pay the commission's fee to the agents on 10%.
Okay.
So that was somehow a sign that Sporting, we give you an exit of 60. Of course, it's not an automatic exit, because Sporting can pay the 6 million euros and keep the player.
Yeah.
And then there was this, after the first season, they met in September, and there was this agreement. Sporting president told him, and he has told him, we will never ask for the buyout clause for you, because you're 27. It's hard to get that kind of money for a player at 27. And then the agents claim that they promised to have a 60 plus 10 million euros exit fee.
It's a strange situation, Sergio. A buyout clause, but we're not going to hold them to it. I want to ask you this. I need you to clarify this for me.
Yeah.
Was there any truth that at some stage he might have been reuniting with Ruben Amorim at Manchester United? Were Manchester United ever in for this boy here?
I'm pretty sure Amorim would love to do it, would love to have him. But from what I know, and this is something I was told even before the January transfer window, that United was not in the plans of Gyokeres, because he feels that it's a club that's still far from being fighting for the league in the Premier League. They still have to grow a lot, develop a lot as a team, and so Gyokeres he wants to goes to a club where he has more chances of winning trophies in a short time. Jeez.
So Gyokeres looked at Arsenal and thinks, I've got a better chance there of winning some trophies than I would have at Manchester United.
Yeah, I think that's common sense. I mean, Arsenal, they are being second, third in the Premier League in the last years, so they have been close to winning the title. So probably with a top striker, they can do it.
Sergio, thank you so much. Sergio, just in the passing, can I thank you again for joining us the other day on the sad day that we learned of the passing of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva. It was a tough day for everybody, and it's still an
really
extremely
tough for us,
I can imagine still a very tough situation for you guys there. Thank you for joining us then, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, my pleasure. Okay,
Sergio Critinas, Executive Director of The Record in Portugal. Interesting that Gyokeres himself saying, no, not United, Arsenal.
Yeah, well, that's not surprising, is it? Because, I mean, it's disappointing for the manager, who probably thinks, in part, I developed a player that couldn't cut it in the Premier League for a variety of different clubs, whether it's Swansea, Brighton or Coventry, and that was down in the pyramid, and I developed him, gave him an opportunity. He doesn't want to play for me. Yeah. I'd never buy into this crap about gentleman's handshake nonsense. That's one person's word against another. That's one person's chosen interpretation. What you signed is what you signed, son. And what you got your agent to put in a contract is what you got your agent to put in a contract. You didn't do it because someone held you down and ambushed your family. You did it because it was a contract that you wanted to sign. Now you don't like it. And now you quote things that I guarantee you, if you spoke to the Sporting owner, did you have a conversation with this player and gave him an assurance on a gentleman's handshake that he could go if a deal was offered around 60, 70 million quid? I bet you hear a different version. Okay. What they do it for is to justify the next sort of behaviour, which is, I'm going to force my way out.
Oh, these footballers.
No, just get balance in the conversation.
Interesting situation with televised football matches is coming to light. And the question here really is, should the Premier League be made available on free-to-air TV? Bear with me briefly on this, Simon. MPs are set to vote today on a Liberal Democrat amendment to make at least 10 Premier League games available on free-to-air TV. Let's cut to the chase here. Why is this happening? And it begs the question, after over 30 years behind a paywall, has the horse well and truly bolted on this one? Max Wilkinson, MP of Culture, Media and Sport, he joins us live. He's at Culture, Media and Sport, of course, for the Liberal Democrats. And Max joins us live on the show. Max, good morning. Tell me about this. Why is it that this vote is coming about, and why are you pushing for it in an amendment form?
Morning, Jim. Morning, Simon. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
We're pushing for this today because we think it's time to bring to an end the paywall that means that people who can't afford to watch top-flight football, in most cases, don't get to watch it. I think over the last season, it was costing you about 700 quid, almost £700 if you wanted to subscribe to TNT and Sky to get access to every Premier League game. And let's face it, if you wanted to watch all of them, you'd have to subscribe to both. Now, what we think is that having a small number of games available for free-to-air is something that's the right thing to do. If you look at the viewing figures, actually, they've gone down on both of those platforms over the last season. We know people are watching football in different ways. They're watching clips on social media. They're watching people playing on computer games. And actually, if you look around the continent as well, in Spain, there's already a precedent here. They've got one game a week for free on DAZN. And this is something that we think we could bring here, and it would be good for the game. It would be good for fans, particularly because we're all suffering this cost of living crisis.
Before Simon comes in, Max, I would ask you, like, it's down to the broadcaster, presumably, to decide which are the 10 that go free to air. I mean, you're not going to get the Manchester derby. You're probably not going to get the Liverpool derby. Are the big ones going to remain behind a paywall?
Well, of course, that's something for the broadcasters and the competitions to sort out. What we're saying is that it's the right thing to do to give people some element of free-to-air access. Now, I'm not going to say that it has to be the Manchester derby or Man United Liverpool. Those are obviously marquee games. But you'd like to think that there would be some decent fixtures that would be on. And let's face it, most Premier League games are pretty good to watch. You're football fans, right? I'm a football fan. I've been to more than 50 Football League grounds as a Southampton fan. And I'm really passionate about the game. I want to make sure that the next generation of football fans is going to grow up as passionate as we are.
Right. Max mentioned it, Simon. La Liga has a deal with the streaming service DAZN that offers one free game a week to fans.
Yeah, you have to pay for DAZN.
And the Lib Dems are suggesting that a model similar to that of the Spanish league could be adopted in the UK.
Well, good for them. The DAZN is behind a paywall. DAZN is a subscription service. I mean, ultimately...
Why are you not having this?
I'm not for it or against it. I'm interested to see how it evaluates. I do get tired and weary of politicians doing the hokey-cokey with sport, coming in and out of it and using it as currency. And I do think that the independent regulator is an absolute faux pas that will be visited back on a sport sooner rather than later. And every time a government gets involved in industry, I'm not entirely sure it benefits it.
Yeah, but how can you argue with this? It's making football more accessible to football fans.
Well, the price point that's become part of the inaccessibility, it's ironic because free-to-air platforms had the opportunity 32 years ago to do something with football, and ironically free-to-air didn't even want to broadcast football in the late 80s and early 90s. They didn't like football very much. So the fact that Sky came along and revolutionised English football and catapulted it into a place that dwarfs the revenues of La Liga, dwarfs the revenues of Bundesliga and so on and so forth, has created a model in football that you're going to row back from. So it'll be interesting to see how the economics, how you strip out 10 games from the broadcast platform that's already there, and how you compensate football, whether you like it or not, because the genie's out of the bottle. The economics of football are at a stage now where the broadcast deals are so significant, so financially significant that football is funded by them, and it's all well and good having this wonderful moral crusade to be able to tip your little hat towards the populist vote of we want to bring football back to the people. It's already with the people. The challenge is how do the economics work?
Is it a moral crusade, Max? I mean, you will say you want to make sport more accessible, more affordable. But on the other hand, your critics will say, oh, this is the Lib Dems trying to get more votes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not here as a moral crusader. Of course, there are morals involved in politics. I had actually a lot of sympathy with what Simon just said there about over-regulation of business. In general, I think we need to start from a point where we're letting business do their thing. Football is a different case, though, and football is about our heritage. Football is about the things that make us passionate as human beings and as people who love to watch sport. We love to follow our teams, and actually we know that viewing figures are going down on those two platforms. What I want to see and what the Lib Dems want to see today is people in Parliament voting to give more access for television coverage of the top flight football.
I do hope that Liberal Democrats are going to be voting in favour of not allowing the government to sell off thousands and thousands of sporting playing fields around the country. I do hope you'll be as vociferous on that subject. But I'm interested to see how you think it will be economically achievable, given that the Premier League has done its broadcast deals, done them for the next 2 or 3 years. And of course, if you're stripping games out, and I would imagine it's to the nation's broadcast to the BBC that you might be talking about, how that financial package will be evaluated through and put into play.
Briefly, how can it be done then, Max? How can you achieve this?
Well, of course, you'd have to look at what happens the next time the contracts are up for negotiation. It's not just the BBC, though, Simon, as you know, that will screen free-to-air football. I remember watching one of the European finals recently, and I didn't have to have a subscription to the channel that I was accessing it through, but it was free to air. There are opportunities here to do it in a different and new and quite innovative way. And I think if you started saying that you're chunking up the packages differently, and let's face it, they already chunk it up into live games on Sky and TNT and then highlights on the BBC. It's just about chunking it up slightly differently. And let's face it, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of games in those packages, and saying that you're stripping out just 10, I don't think would have a massive impact on the economics of football. And as a football fan, the last thing I want to do is put the economics of football at risk. We've also got this position, right, where the football governance bill the football governance bill is there to try to make football more sustainable for fans and for the game, and more financially sustainable. As a football club owner, Simon, you did a terrific job with Palace, right, taking them back to the Premier League, and then you had some financial difficulties later on, but you were a good owner for the club. There are many good owners out there, but there are many club owners that haven't done the right thing over time and have got into difficulty. Now, this discussion today is all about the sustainability of football, and sustainability of football comes down to having fans who want to access the game, and we know that the generations that are coming behind
with due respect, you need to understand what sustainability means, because if sustainability means having an ownership model like the Saudi Arabians that have got more money than God, yet they can't compete in the marketplace they operate in, that's not anything to do with sustainability. But the fact is, if you strip 10 games out, Jim, 10 games will be worth 100 million. That's what 10 games will be worth. Watch the Premier League clubs turn around and say, oh yeah, we'll be happy to give up £5 million a season.
Okay, Max Wilkinson MP will watch with interest. As you heard there, MPs set to vote today on the Lib Dems amendment to make at least 10 Premier League games available on free-to-air TV. Sam is a Manchester United fan. Sam, do you agree with me? It's one thing the Lib Dems saying this and then having a vote on it. It's another thing actually implementing it.
I think where the problem sits is not so much implementing it, it's what games are going to be done. Earlier on in the show, you guys are talking about how Newcastle are sat on, God money, but can't use it all and everything like that nature. These 10 free games, are Manchester City versus Arsenal going to be sit there and free to air? Or is it going to be a couple of lower tier teams that are just like, locals will love it, big fans will love it, but the reality is they're the ones that are going to get hit with this £5-10 million loss and have 3-4 games lost, and then suddenly they're 30-40 million out of pocket, and it's not going to be the big four that can afford to take that hit. It's going to be the lower league teams that get the hit, that can't afford to have that loss.
Sam's got a good point there. It's not going to be Arsenal, Manchester United, is it? Well, with all due respect.
Well, who knows how they're going to construct it? But first of all, the distribution of the money isn't just you get a certain amount of TV appearances guaranteed. So if you're going to continue getting those, and you have the free-to-air component part of it as well, the big thing is if you're giving all the games to the current broadcasters behind a paywall, how are you going to carve it out and how the economics going to work? And it isn't just going to be that the smaller clubs, they can have their Burnley versus Bournemouth. No one will want to watch it, but they can have it.
But do you accept that not all games need to be behind a paywall?
I accept the principle of the fact that broadcasting football is very valuable to people that want to watch it. The challenge is the genie's out. So how do you unwind this story now economically? How do you unwind it and turn around and say that 32 years ago, the free-to-air boys had a chance? They didn't want it. BBC, ITV, they didn't want it. ITV wanted it for a lot less than Sky. Sky have built football. It's gone behind a paywall. Football's been funded by broadcasters and by benefactors, and you're now at this point where you think you're going to row it back. You think you're going to row it back, and you think you're going to get a bunch of politicians and a nondescript bunch like the Liberal Democrats to put forward an amendment to a regulator's bill that's going to turn around to football and say, first of all, we want to make sure that the Champions League and the League Ones are getting more money, and by the way, on top of that, we're going to make sure that we impact upon your broadcast deals. The Premier League are not going to have it.
Yeah, but having said that, let me throw this at you. Say free-to-air, one of the 10 free-to-air, for argument's sake, is Burnley against Palace. Yeah. And Palace win at Burnley by 4-3. Yeah. That might incentivise more people to buy a package.
Yeah, and you know what? It's also called a thing called Match of the Day.